Hello and welcome to Safety Revolution, a Viva podcast exploring the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm David Kolosic, Director of Safety Strategy. Today, I'm excited to host Martijn van der Leur and Olga Simaki from Biomappers. Martijn, Olga, welcome to Safety Revolution. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you. So in this podcast, we'd like to see different experiences, different perspectives. You have the perspective of the CRO, which is very important in this industry. Before we dive into the topics, let's start maybe with introductions so the audience gets to know you. So maybe, Olga, would you say a few words about you?
Yes, of course, I can start. Thank you. My name is Olga Simaki. I am the head of the International QPPV office and Global Medical Information in Biomappers. I joined Biomappers almost 5 years ago after 8 years in big organizations where I also had pharmacovigilance and medical information roles. I am Greek. I am based in Athens. I am a neuroscientist. As my background, I worked for years in academia before I moved to industry. I have PhD in pharmacology, and I'm very happy that I decided almost 13 years ago to move and develop my career in pharmacovigilance. So I'm here to discuss the topics that you have in mind.
Great. Well-rounded experience. Martijn?
Yes. Hi, my name is Martijn van der Leur. I'm currently Chief Commercial Officer at Biomappers, but there was a long path before that. My whole life I've been working in pharmacovigilance mostly. That's where I started my career. I did that for 15 years, always in big pharma companies. And after 15 years was looking for a change, and that's where I joined a service provider. That was a big change for me. I joined there as a head of pharmacovigilance initially. At some point got responsibility for 2 more departments, and since last year in a more commercial role. But still my big passion is pharmacovigilance, and in particular also the technologies around that.
That's great. So you've been in the industry side, you've also been in academia, now you're in a service provider. So can you tell us a little bit more about Biomappers and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So Biomappers is a service provider. We provide services in pharmacovigilance, regulatory affairs, medical information, and clinical research. The company exists for about 24 years and already for a very long time has been active in the pharmacovigilance field. As said, I'm there more than 5 years now, and still we see that business developing very fast. So.
Yeah, outsourcing is a big thing in pharmacovigilance, right? And it's one of these things that is going to stay, and it's a very important element, right? The sponsors cannot do it without you. So the benefit you have is you work with multiple customers in multiple regions, small and big. So you got to see the problems of the smaller ones, the problems of the bigger ones, which might be different. So I'm curious, what type of trends have you been seeing in the last years?
Yeah, well, one trend that I have seen, I've seen almost the start of outsourcing happening. When I was back in the pharma companies long ago, I saw these massive outsourcing projects to far away, where there was not always a very great satisfaction. It was a big struggle. Also myself, I was involved in managing the large teams overseas. That was really hard to control. It was cost efficient on paper, but in practice, when we looked at all the costs we made in terms of controlling that and having the right oversight, it was really a challenge, to the point that I saw at some point the industry got a bit skeptical about this. And that's where I've seen quite a change in the last couple of years, that there's coming much more trust in outsourcing. And as you said, it will not go away, it will only get bigger. And that has to do, I think, with this level of control that increased, the transparency, seeing service providers as integrated teams instead of just standalone, far away teams. And that is really a development I've seen, and which I'm actually very happy with.
And what are some of the reasons you would see the sponsors would be outsourcing? Is it because of I guess it's a mix of things, right? Capacity, geographic reach, your relationship with the local authorities, your knowledge? Would it be what do you think are the main reasons? And I guess these might be different depending on the size of the company as well, right?
Usually the first that comes to mind, of course, is cost. But it's not only this. What we start to see is that things have become so specialized that actually service providers, as you said, with their access to so many different types of customers, they become sometimes even more experts in certain details of a process than the single clients that we work for. So that's what I mentioned as this more integrated approach, that we really see that we can more advise our customers now, and this is really welcomed by customers, that yes, we can really help and not only be a pool of resource. So that is really important now, I think. And then how do you convince customers, or how do customers feel satisfied? That has to do, of course, with relationships, but also with transparency, constantly delivering high quality, and visibility, allowing the customer to be part of what we do, and have the right level of control that they're looking for.
And something else that is very important here, why the outsourcing is a trend currently, attraction of talents, maintaining them trained. It's also an additional cost for the companies, for the marketing authorization holders, and of course scalability. Adapting, involving, and changing needs. Maybe today you need X amount of the resources, and in 2 months of now double, that it may go back to and be more stable after a year. A CRO company can provide this scalability without increasing internally the cost to hire, recruit, maintain, and train, and keep up to date internal staff.
So what I'm seeing is, one thing is that as your consultants work for different organizations, they get to see different worlds, different ways of doing things. They start collecting the best practices, and then they start implementing those with the other customers, right? So they're kind of taking the best of the worlds. But also that, as I said, institutional knowledge can be used, but you have to make sure that you retain the talent to have the business continuity. But I guess it also helps small organizations that are expanding, putting the first products on the market. They just don't have the knowledge of how to do it. Maybe they know how to run the clinical trials, but then post-marketing is a completely different thing. And as you're expanding globally to various regions, that's why you also need to have that local know-how, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that's actually how we started off. Also, when we started working in Vault Safety, for example, it was not our core business to do case processing at that time. But we saw this huge need, particularly from these kind of clients who are small, don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge, coming to us like, please do everything for pharmacovigilance. And it needs to be robust, it needs to be inspection ready. And that's how we felt the need, like we really need a proper system. And that's when we started using Vault Safety. And now we see that this is also progressing so fast that by now it's not the tiny companies anymore, but you know it better than I. It's the biggest customers in the world using your system. And now we also come to a different level that actually we get a lot of requests to help them, like because we have done for so many clients similar tasks, slightly different sometimes, but within the same system, that yes, we can even now help the largest organizations.
And I think there's a very good historical context to where you are today, because this journey started many years ago. So when you joined Biomappers, you were actually tasked to do something with the outdated technology. And your decision or your strategy was to kind of challenge the status quo, challenge what's out there, and be one of the early adopters of Viva Safety, right? So you were one of the first customers in Europe to actually go live with our systems. I'm curious why, like, how did you have the courage to just, disrupt what was out there and try something new?
For me, that was not so difficult. It was more difficult to convince even my own company that this was a good idea. It had some risk, of course, but for me, it was straightforward. I mean, we did the formal assessment. Yes, it was one of my first tasks when I joined Biomappers. As you said, we had a very outdated, not functioning safety database. And they gave me total freedom. They said, you have the budget like this, but go out and select the best one. And they had a few names in mind, but I said, well, okay, we'll evaluate, but I have my years of experience with all the existing solutions and none of them makes me happy. So we did, of course, a very objective assessment, and out of that assessment on a few criteria that were really important to me, Viva Vault Safety ranked the highest.
And this is something that we also see it with our potential customers. They are used, either they are used to use specific system and they don't want to change this habit and maybe a little bit hesitant at the beginning, or they hear Viva and just the brand is enough to be convinced. But also those that they are hesitant, after we provide clear argumentations, the features of the system, we usually also demonstrate the system. Most importantly, if we are talking about clinical trials and the sponsor has internal capabilities, they can even intervene in the workflow. They can do the medical review, the approval of a case, so they feel as expansion of the service rather than having outsourced something and they have no idea how it goes. So this oversight, visibility over the data, reports, dashboards is something that of course is highly appreciated. And at the same time, if they have the resources to intervene, they approach it and they experience it as their own system.
And if I can link that to the strategy thing that you said, like how do I see PV and outsourcing, this was the right fit because it's exactly tackling these topics that I mentioned in the beginning, the transparency, the desire for a certain level of control from companies, of course, which is logical. The visibility on what's happening, that black box that used to be there in the past, like you dump a few thousands of reports and then you pray that they will come back on time, that's gone. And that really makes a change. That helps us to build trust with our customers. As Olga explained, we even collaborate, which relates to what I said, that service providers are now more integrated parts of the companies. And this is truly how you can collaborate together in the same system.
It makes a lot of sense because oversight, control, visibility, these are important keywords are being used across the industry, and the fact that you can give that with confidence and transparency, as you said, builds that relationship. And that's actually the next topic I want to talk about, the sponsor CRO relationship. It's very important. So it used to be more transactional, now it's becoming much more like a partnership, right? Because in the end, it is one team, you're working for the same objective.
It is the strategic insights, not just execute, let's say, the activities. Provide consultancy. Let your client be part of the decision after providing information. I think that this is what it makes a very big change, that it is not a standalone separate service, but the clients can feel your team as expansion of their own teams. They have trust. They feel that they have a service provider that they can rely on. A service provider who can provide new technologies, new solutions, and even if we say that maybe this is not efficient, we have another solution. We see that the clients, the companies are open to these ideas, and I think that this also is something that can build trust and a real partnership rather than a vendor-client collaboration.
But also you touched a little bit already on how that practically works with collaborating in the same system. But to be even more specific, when we were just setting up our Vault Safety, we already had a customer interested to work together with us in the same system, and they had very specific wishes. They wanted to be involved in certain parts of the workflow. It was, I think, medical review and unblinding in case of SUSARs for clinical trials. And so we worked with your consultants and set it up, and yeah, that worked. And that, there's no better way to get that trust from a customer. And sometimes, I mean, this is a very tight collaboration, but sometimes if we tell customers, you can have read-only access, that's already sufficient to say like, oh, wow, great. So that means at any point in time, I can look at my own cases and what you guys are doing with that. So that helps a lot.
So it's that level of flexibility you can give them, right? It's either full outsourcing, you do the whole thing end to end, but they have visibility, they can access your system. They don't have to ask you for some data and then you come back to them in a few days. Actually, they can just log in and see it in real time, right? And on the other hand, if they want to be a bit more actively involved, they can go in the system, they get a notification, they can do the work, do the unblinding, etc. So that's level of flexibility, right?
And maybe one more trend, what I've seen, I mean, it's a logical evolution, but back in the days when systems were not on cloud yet and everybody had their own, it started from a basis of a certain system, which was on the side, further developed, customized. Now there's, of course, the cloud systems. Still, some companies, have their own specific wishes for which they try to configure or even customize. But the trend I really see, we hear that even from very big customers coming to us like, hey, you work for many clients on Viva. We also want to switch, or we switched already, and we want it out of the box, nothing special. Please tell us what is your default process and we will try to accommodate. And that wish becomes more and more prominent because it's unmanageable for companies, particularly big companies, to keep tweaking systems and informing or training their thousands of users worldwide. And that's such a great advantage if we now come to this level of standardization that we can all say like, okay, this is fault safety, default configuration, go. And even then in inspections, when we are asked what's your safety system, fault safety, okay, any modifications? No, default configuration, okay, good, tick, and we proceed. So that's even a level of trust between, let's say, our system provider and health authorities, which makes life so much easier for us and for pharma companies as well.
Yeah, I think driving standardization is a big topic for us and for the industry. What we've seen with some of the leaders we talk with is that sometimes you would have different agencies looking at the same thing, having different perspectives. And I think sometimes that is pushing that configuration or going away from standardization. So I think there's a need for the industry to collaborate, like us, with the regulators to try to drive that standardization.
But that's not only system specific. As long as I've been in pharmacovigilance, there have been always the wishes for more standardization, a lot of good efforts made, especially also across Europe. But then still within a European Union, you see different interpretations. That's, it was there already 10, 20 years ago. It's still there sometimes in health authority inspections. Yeah, and that's a big task for the industry to work together with the regulators and keep coming closer together. Yeah.
I think that nicely goes into your expertise, Olga. So you are a QPPV as well. You are sitting in those circles, talking to the QPPVs. Of course, on one hand, the organizations are dealing with high volumes of cases, high complexity cases, meaning that there's a big need for operational efficiency and innovation. On the other hand, there's compliance. So I'm curious, like from the QPPV perspective, how do you see the shifts in technology, all of this modernization that's coming through, and on the other hand, the evolving regulations, which are maybe not evolving as quickly as technology does?
Mm-hmm. First of all, there is also a bit confusion with the word technology. We hear about AI, artificial intelligence in pharmacovigilance for years now. I think that what is currently in practice is basic automation. Maybe RPAs. You need to have a very strong foundation in order to be able to put some basic automation, and only when you have fully controlled, validated, quality check the results of your automation, then only start considering about AI. So for the QPPVs, we go back to foundation. The highest priority is the patient safety and, as you mentioned, the regulatory compliance. So if we have the right foundation, and what we mean with this, trusted processes, visibility into data, and clear oversight, then we can feel confident and we can be highly engaged in digital transformation, because we know that we are not going to compromise compliance. So in my view, it is not to take a decision between or select between compliance or innovation. We need to have the appropriate tools, the appropriate processes in place in order to enable both of them. And of course, this needs right processes and right governance in place. Regarding the regulatory authorities that you mentioned, yes, this is something else that is being discussed between QPPVs. Maybe the main theme there is the different pace that technology is evolving compared to regulations. And of course, regulatory authorities working hard to keep up, but still this lag creates uncertainty to QPPVs. And of course, uncertainty makes QPPVs nervous. So without clear guidance, without concrete guidance, I think that we cannot really lean into innovation. And except for this, when we are talking about technology, we always need to have in mind the quality control. It doesn't mean that we put an automated process or AI and that the human factor is excluded. Always we need to reconcile the data, do quality check of the data, and only then take decisions about a permanent implementation or about the next step. And of course, validation. That validation shouldn't happen only at the beginning of the process or when you start using a tool, but being a continuous maintenance that is adapting in the evolving needs and in the configurations and the change management.
It has to be proactive. I like what you said. So technology is basically enabler. It's augmenting, it's helping, but still on top of that, you have humans who have to make those important decisions for the patients, and you have to make sure that you have oversight, control, it's validated, you know how it works. So then when you go in front of the inspectors and they ask you difficult questions, you have answers to those. As Martin said before, you can really show the traceability of all of your decisions and what you have been doing in your process. Maybe Martin, from your perspective, you have been to so many events over the past years. I think over the last 1 or 2 years, there's been a huge hype around AI. So every Congress you go to talks about AI. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what's out there and what's the reality.
I would even extend that time frame from 1 to 2 years to maybe 5 years. But you're right that the last 1 or 2 years, like you cannot avoid the word in any presentation you go to. That's true. But already 5 years ago, or longer, maybe 10 years ago, they were talking about the revolution that would come through technology. And we all know, let's be honest, how slow evolution in pharmacovigilance is. I feel a bit like an old man now, but I think I'm celebrating my 20th year this year in the industry. And we're still laughing with the colleagues of my first company about how old-fashioned it was when we started. That was already at that time crazy, you know, the amounts of paper we were processing, and not just my first year, but my first 5, 6, 7 years, you know, huge amounts of paper and labor going into processing all of that. So it was already a big thing when we were able to go paperless. Wow, that was a revolution on itself. And then the next stage was going to cloud technology. I remember it's not so long ago, maybe 10 years ago, that one of my colleagues asked me, what do you think about this? Moving a safety database to the cloud, is this safe? Will it be accepted by health authorities? Okay, now we can say this is not a question anymore, it's a must. You know, the alternative is much worse, what it used to be in the past. And then we come to the next level, these discussions about, automation, or one step further, AI. I think Olga already nicely explained it, that yes, we truly see the benefits of automation now in practice. That I would really say it's a next stage of the revolution in pharmacovigilance. But AI, yes, it's such a buzzword. What I see is that some of the largest companies in the world who put so much efforts on this and get the attention from decent technology providers, they are able to make the first revolutionary steps in this field. But then how about the rest? All the others who don't have maybe that amount of capacity or attention from providers. And then what you see in this overhyped field is that you get endless amounts of startups who see, you know, gold, piles of gold, like, whoa, if we find the chicken with the golden egg, then we're there, right? And some have been kind of successful, but like with all startups, many absolutely not. And that's where I see, and what I feel myself, I'm still skeptical sometimes about what I hear. And I see that people are getting tired of seeing so many of these revolutionary ideas until the first demo, and you're going to try something with an import of a slightly different form than the standard one, and it fails. And that's where the industry cannot allow any, let's say, you know, risk or gap. It's safety. It's about patient safety. It's about millions of cases and data flowing around. That's where, yeah, by nature and maybe on purpose, the evolution is slow. You cannot take risks there. But to summarize my whole monologue, it's really true that we do see the first implementations of AI in pieces of a process really becoming very helpful now as supportive tools with writing certain pieces of text and or other side tasks. There's a lot of still going on outside a safety database with all these side processes. That's where AI really starts to become helpful. But don't have the illusion, if any company would come to me today and say, we automate pharmacovigilance end-to-end, fully supported by artificial intelligence, sorry, I don't believe it. We're not there.
Yeah, that's still a long way. I think AI is a paradigm shift. So cloud technology was a paradigm shift, right? So that has changed the way industries operate for the better. But like you mentioned, it took, especially in life sciences, it took a little while for the industry and the regulators to get used to the idea of this technology, the benefits it brings, that it's actually secure. I guess the AI is going to go on the same path. And as you mentioned, it might start with very small use cases within the large organizations that have the appetite and the resources to try. And the smaller organizations that maybe don't have that would benefit from that sometime in the future, right? But maybe thinking about practicalities, you mentioned document authoring, right? Do you have any specific use cases where you think that automation cannot or can solve for to a certain level, but then the AI can kind of make it better?
Yes, I think it's the whole medical writing thing. Feeding AI with data, with big data, provide templates, take content summaries based on specific references. This is something that I think that it's let's say closer to be used than actual pharmacovigilance implementations, but still it is going to help the author to make a start, but still it will need, of course, review, approval. It facilitates, in my view, at least for the first year, the process, rather than replacing human beings.
Yeah, I think the first thing is foundation of trusted data. That's a starting point. Then a bit of automation with having the document templates, pull the data in, and then use the AI to make it sound a bit more human or to start analyzing some of the data points. And of course, then you need, at least today, you need a high degree of human verification just to make sure there was not many hallucinations. But I guess those confidence levels could go up as the technology progresses.
Yeah. And then, for example, one other practical challenge that we already see, as we are a service provider working with so many different clients, and we're trying things with AI and with our own implementations there. But can you use the data that you get from all your customers in one pool to train your system? I don't think so.
That's data privacy.
Yeah. So how, I mean, at least you should be aware of that. Like, okay, now we have something that might work, but we cannot mix up the data. So, and then is the data that you get from one small customer enough to properly train your AI system? Maybe not. So, then maybe, again, for those smaller customers, we're not there yet. And for the larger ones, it might be a bit more realistic to implement.
Yeah, so if we look at next 5 years, 2030, if you had a crystal ball and you could see in the future, what do you think is going to be the most impactful innovation in PV? Or if I ask differently, what is going to be today's business challenge that's going to be a solved problem by 2030?
I would definitely link it with what we call big data. And I think that it would be the seamless integration of AI-driven signal detection and case processing with trusted and real-time data sources. I think that this friction is going to be dramatically reduced. The challenge of fragmented data and manual handoffs that currently lower the insights and make the risks higher. I think that this is something that is going to be considered resolved. We are going to have connected and intelligent safety system that can anticipate the compliance needs and at the same time support us to take to make decisions based on real data.
High volumes of data, predictive signaling, analytics, and then giving you some trends and insights that as a human is difficult to see with the naked eye.
Yeah, and I can understand, let's say, if I would be a QPPV at that time, that you're like an air traffic controller with not the current amount of planes coming in, but 100 times more or 1,000, even if that's theoretically possible, how would that look like? I would like to have this dashboard, where I just get beep, there's something, you adjust, beep, there, oh, it's nothing, okay. We're talking about passenger safety in there, but it would be the same for patient safety.
It gives you proactive insights, so you don't have to look and find problems. The problems are actually surfacing, and then you can just fix those proactively rather than reactively.
Yes, because it needs to be sustainable and scalable, right? At the moment, I think many companies struggle with the scalability. They reach their limits already, and their executive teams will not accept exponential increase in costs year over year. That's already something going on for years. And then if you're not there yet with your technology, then you see pharmacovigilance departments being under pressure, like you have to cut costs or you cannot get more resources. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must.
It has to be a cost benefit as well, right? It's not just driving costs up and not seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Last question. So if you're maybe a little bit more light one, because we talked about quite interesting but heavy topics. If your PV system was a superhero, who would it be?
It is a superhero, our PV system. Who would be? I wouldn't select the flashiest one. I would select Batman. And why? Because Batman is always well prepared, is reliable, well equipped, and most importantly, he has a very unshakable sense of duty. So, like Batman, the PV system needs to be, let's say, 2 steps ahead. It needs to be reliable, and it needs to be quiet. And at the end of the day, this is what we really need during hard times and easy times on PV. A quiet, reliable system that it's always well prepared and a few steps ahead so that it can be proactive for the next day.
And don't forget, he has a really cool car as well. It's not only looking cool, but very advanced. And without that, he would be less.
Well equipped and uses the best tools and technologies.
Exactly.
No, that's a great analogy. And actually, I think we might be able to start a trend. Let's see if people latch into it. So we know that some of the customers like to name their vault safeties. So maybe they can start naming them by superheroes. That'd be a cool one. With this, I thank you for this. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope the listeners have enjoyed as well. So I would like to thank you for coming, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting us.